Hello everybody, my name is John. Welcome to Hillbilly Select Reviews. Before we get started on this very interesting beer, it is a beer. I'm going to explain all this as quick as I can. This is going to be a very fascinating video for y'all. Just to let you know, I do beers, wines, liquors, liqueurs, my world famous Sunday morning coffee reviews. Sometimes I do tea. Everything that big boys and girls like to drink. And I ask one thing. I ask you too, if you can, to sub real quick. Just make it snappy. Boom, hit it. Maybe a thumbs up and a comment to hit the analytics. I'll do my end. All right. I'll do my part on this side of the camera. And together, we are headed toward greatness. This is a beer. Okay. This is a beer. It is Lindemans, right? Framboise Raspberry Lambic beer. What the heck does that mean? And let me show you how that's spelled. Well, let me show the whole thing. So the way you say that word here is framboise. A lot of people say framboise or whatever. But the correct way. It's from Belgium. Not only is it from Belgium, it's from a small area in Belgium. Excuse me, close to Brussels. Just a small valley. And that's important because this beer is special and it's specially made. And I'm going to have to open it today. Excuse me. With this, right? Bottle opener. And this. And I'm going to explain why. This is a raspberry lambic. What is a lambic beer? Well, it's been brewed since the Middle Ages. Right? Since like the 13th century. And instead of using brewer's yeast to ferment it, it is left traditionally outside in this valley, and the natural yeast from all the plants, from all the locally grown plants, find their way into the sugary wort, the mixture that they're making, which is generally 70% malted barley, 30% wheat, and aged hops, and they leave it open. Now, the way this company does, they've been making it since the 1800s. There may be something on here, 1822. This particular family, and they just leave the windows open in the brewery and let the wind blow through, and the natural yeast and the natural bacteria finds its way into the vats, and for 6 months makes beer. Then they put it in a second fermentation in barrels, not a second fermentation, a maturation for another year. Because it's not using brewer's yeast, it's using natural yeast, natural bacteria. The ABV is usually low on this, between 2 and 5% on these beers. They're not wines, they are beers. Okay, they are beers. They can be drank as is. A lot of times fruit is added to these beers. Because of the way they're made, they're actually a lot of fauna and good stuff for your gut, for gut bacteria, because of the natural bacteria and stuff that's in there. It's actually kind of like having fermented vegetables as far as for your gut, your stomach, the probiotics. Let's see if there's anything else that's really interesting about this. And when you realize that the uniqueness of this, of how it's made, is cool. The reason it's going to have a cap and a cork in it, is more for tradition, because back in the day they used a lot of discarded champagne bottles to do the fermentation in, and they will hold up to the pressure, okay, of this. A lot of times there's a second fermentation after they add the fruit. Matter of fact, back in the day when they used to make fruit and they started shipping it to the US, the movement of the ships restarted fermentation. All the corks would pop out, and so they kind of use a fruit juice now and control that a little better. But the main thing to come from this is it is a beer. It is naturally fermented in a small area in Belgium, very small valley, with natural yeast. Just blows in, finds its way. Natural bacteria, good probiotics, low alcohol, so you can drink these. It has a unique flavor because of the way it's made, and we're gonna see what that is. It should be probably a little sour. maybe like cidery, tart, dry. Let's get into it. Very, very unique, I'm telling you. So, let's see here. Oh, may not be the best. You know, we'll peel this foil off, which is there to look good. No, it looks good. You know, I'm going to see if anything. Lambic Framboise, or Lindemans Framboise Lambic beer, local barley, unmalted wheat, raspberry juice, and hops. It's actually aged hops, and wild airborne yeast, as we talked about, wild bacteria. True lambics are rare. All come from one of fewer than a dozen breweries in Belgium. Particular valley, about 15 by 75 miles in size. Kind of what I went over. All right, I gave you a little more in depth than that. So now we come to the cap. All right, normal cap has the name of the brewery. Let me, yeah, all right. Well, there's little Belgian kind of colors of their flag right there, if you can see that. And then once again, before we get started, I find this beer to be very unique. It's not a wine. Hard to get the cap off, I'll give it that, but I got it. Alright, so now, got the cap off with a bottle opener. Now look. Okay, I knew it was in there, no problem. You see a lot of people when they open this, they're shocked there's a cork in there. More for tradition now, I think, than anything. But, like I said, a low ABV and the great taste allows you to enjoy multiples of these. On a nice hot summer day. Come on. Hear that? So I'm going to keep this with my wine corks. Oh, I'll show it to you here. This probably has some sediment and stuff in it in a second if it fermented a little bit in this bottle. What they would call the lees, the dead yeast and stuff. Won't hurt you. Matter of fact, it adds a hell of a lot of flavor. It's how the bitter champagnes are done. Gives a yeasty flavor. Anyway, there's a little cork. A little baby cork. Alright, my cork collection. Now, I smell the raspberry from here. Coming out of that little... Wow. See the top of the beer? Kind of matches the color. So there it is. You're looking at it. A reddish, purplish color, right? With a pink type head to it. Going back to the Middle Ages. Natural fermentation. Natural yeast. No brewer's yeast. Natural bacteria finds its way into this sugary malted thing they got going on with the sugars, right? They malt the barley, and that produces sugar when they do that, and then the yeast comes in there and eats it. Let me smell it first. I jumped right to it because I love this beer. And I'm going to talk about something else here. The smell of the raspberries, it's, some people say it's overwhelming. Maybe I'm used to it. It's a nice raspberry smell. It is. There's no doubt about it. But it's not crazy. It's not sweet candy garbage. It's just a nice, classy smell with the earthiness of the beer, the yeast that's in there. This kind of reminds me of the kombucha. Is that what it is? Those kind of fermented sodas or whatever, where they're kind of good for you as far as the probiotics. Same thing here. So there's a certain sweetness, or perceived sweetness, more of the so it's so fruit forward. It's very nice, fruity, and raspberry is such a nice flavor. Then you have the cidery, earthy, almost a dryness on the back end. and it becomes very sour. This is probably the original sour beer that's getting popular now. Well, this goes back to 13th century. And it's a beautiful sourness. I love the tart. I'll call it more of a tartness. And why is it so good? Because it really balances out the fruit and the perceived sweetness of the fruit, that tartness. It just makes it so nice to get that sweet and kind of sweet and sour. This, it's very good. It's very unique. I've heard people bashing it because it doesn't have high alcohol. I don't just, you could drink, you could put vodka or pure grain in if you want to ruin it. If you enjoy this process. I don't care if it has any alcohol, but then I guess technically it wouldn't be. But I love it. I love that it doesn't have a lot of alcohol because I can drink many of them. I drink for flavor. Yeah. And I admire the process of how things are made a lot of times if they're good. And I appreciate quality. Appreciate tradition. This is only made in one small area in the world. A very, very, very unique way. With the cool cap and the cork in it. You bring a couple of these over to people who aren't familiar with them. A lot of people are, of course. Over to our, serve them to your dinner guests. Just put them on the table. With like one of these next to them, or in the middle of the table. People like that. And then explain the story here. Be a fun little conversation while you're eating. Might break some ice, get things rolling. I think there's a lot of places for this to make some interesting conversation, get the ball rolling. In my case, I like to talk about stuff like this. So it would be a good thing into different beers people have had, different wines people have had, blah, blah, blah. So it's beery, cidery. I don't feel it to be any bit wine related. I think maybe because as a cork, people talk about it being a wine. I don't know where that comes from, other than it has a cork in it. So, if you haven't had a lambic, right? If you haven't had a lambic, you need to try try one. Doesn't have to be this particular brewery, Lindemans. But you try one. So, Framboise. I've heard it pronounced framboise. Maybe correct, framboise. I think it's framboise. It's not framboise or framboise or whatever. But you know what? If you anglicize it a little bit, right? We are in the United States here. But the correct way, the way I understand it, is framboise. But that's not important. It's the lambic. That's the type of beer it is. All right. So I may put a couple more on here. If you all like them, let me know, and I'll get some other ones. We'll do different ones, different flavors, and so on. All right. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to sub and comment and watch, which you're still here, which is, I love it. Leave a little comment, a thumbs up. Help those analytics. And I'll do my part here, and we're off to see the wizard, right? This channel will be doing good. If you have I comment back, by the way. I'll answer every one of your comments. It's just something I do. From Hillbilly Select Reviews, I will see y'all on the next one. Thanks for being here, man.